Hello, everybody. Welcome to the ZBN podcast. I am your oft-awaited returning host, Spigel. With me today, my effortless partner buddy thing, Piddle is here.
Hello, everybody.
And also joining us is Nick with a brand new microphone, and he sounds great, and he was on 20 Questions. Go watch 20 Questions.
Hello, everyone. I was also on the Sonic podcast, but that's fine. That's forgot.
Right. I did. I didn't listen to that because it's Sonic.
That's a good point.
Actually, that's a really good transition because today we're going to be doing our first ever franchise review on the, well, not first ever because we did Star Fox, but it was bad. So this is going to be our first ever good franchise review show. And today we're doing the Mario show. Mario, everybody. Mario is an iconic gaming character, and I think we felt it would be appropriate to sort of lead off with it. Because the ZBN podcast, if you guys haven't noticed, kind of undergoing a little bit of changes, or some changes, hosting-wise and just cast-wise, and we're coming up with new ideas and stuff, and we thought a franchise review would be a good idea to kind of go back to that. So here we are.
Are you guys ready? I'm ready.
I'm so ready.
I'm fired up.
You kidding me?
We're getting started first with the Mario impressions, right? That's why I came. So I showed up for the Mario impressions.
Basically, we're just going to go through every Super Mario game that's ever been released and sort of talk about it a little bit. Would you guys say before we start that Mario is like one of your favorite game franchises? Because I definitely
favorite
would.
Still.
Favorite?
Like I have others that sometimes I'm more interested in at the time, but overall Mario is always at the top.
For me, not quite my favorite, but at one point I thought about like my favorite franchises, and Mario was definitely in there and pretty high up the list.
The thing about it, I feel like, is that there's nothing like tearing into a brand new Mario game, even if it's kind of like a stale one, like the new Super Mario Brothers series, which we'll get to later. But for me, even when I started playing New Super Mario Brothers 2, which I didn't love, it was just, it felt really nice to be playing it again. There's just something about that formula that just feels like synonymous with gaming itself, and I don't really know what that is, but maybe we'll examine that a little bit. But enough of that. Let's just go ahead and get started.
Get to the list.
The first real appearance of Mario was actually not even Mario. It was in Donkey Kong from 1981 in the arcade games. The arcade games. It was in arcades, and eventually it came to a lot of home consoles like the Atari 2600, came to the NES, eventually was released on the Game Boy. But Donkey Kong was a very good game, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's probably one of the best arcade games ever.
You know, I'd have to agree, except for that time in Donkey Kong 64 when they force you to play it. Donkey Kong...
Yeah, it does suck in that game, doesn't it?
Yeah, but we can save that for a show when we talk about that franchise, so get excited for that later, everyone. Donkey Kong, it wasn't even Mario. I mean, it was, but it was Jumpman, I think, at the time. So
That's right.
It was really...
And he was not a plumber, he was a carpenter.
It's true. I mean...
Which is why he was climbing steel girders, because I guess that's something that carpenters have to do during their jobs.
I hear about a lot of the real life Mario carpenter situations all the time.
Yeah.
So quick throwing it out there. There's 3 stages in Donkey Kong, right?
I remember 3.
Yes. Yeah. Which is your favorite?
I would have to go with actually the one that was not in the original Donkey Kong, and that's the Pie Factory stage, which was not introduced until I want to say the Game Boy version, I think, was the first one that had the Pie Factory.
See, I can't even remember. I guess just the first stage for me, because it's the one I'm most familiar with.
I would have to say the first stage as well. Man,
it is iconic.
I couldn't stand the Pie Factory one. I died too frequently.
The pie's
I was bad at it.
How do you die by jumping on a pie? I mean, does it have like a bomb in it? That's not clear. And then why? Like all the stages are based around construction sites, and then you're in a pie factory. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Well,
yeah.
So anyway, then there was another arcade game. Let's just get off this topic. There was another arcade game that came out in 1983 called Mario Brothers, and this was the first appearance of Mario, if I'm correct, as Mario. And Luigi was in it, and basically you were running around a sewer. I guess this was their first appearance as plumbers, too, and you were, like, killing turtles and crabs and other nasty things.
And so we talked about this a little bit the other day, and you said you didn't like it in arcades.
I hate this
game.
game.
I remember loving it when I found it in arcades, but it might have just been the novelty of finding it at the time, because in truth, even on like the newer versions on Game Boy, I would play it a little bit and be like, okay, that was neat, and then just not want to play it ever anymore.
See,
for me, go ahead.
Oh, I can't play it on like the newer versions that are on Game Boy, but when I was in 6th grade, my little story about Mario Brothers is it had been ported to Macintosh computers through a floppy disk, and
you're dating yourself.
I know.
Be careful.
I know I am, but in 6th grade, we had a computer in our classroom, and it was a Macintosh, and you could play Mario Brothers on it. And that was I did that. I like showed up to school early specifically just to play Mario Brothers. So that's me.
For me, it was just it felt the first time I played it, it felt dated, which was a problem because the controls were kind of slippery and it was really repetitive and it just wasn't very interesting. It didn't quite even have the challenge of a Donkey Kong, and it didn't have anything that really stuck out to me as being fantastic. But that's how I feel about the original Mario Brothers.
All right.
No response, Nick? I thought you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
About the original?
Yeah.
Not really. Like, there's not a ton to say. It was a little bit of fun at the time, but it was on Atari too. Just fun fact, it was also on Atari as well as Mac. It was like one of the only examples of a Mario game on many different platforms that were not Nintendo related.
Yeah. Right. We should just come to consensus and agree that Mario Brothers wasn't actually good until it was a mini game in Super Mario Brothers 3, and you could steal all of the cards from your co-op partner. Well, I guess not really co-op partner.
So actually, let's move on to those NES games. In 1985, the game that is credited with resurrecting the gaming industry as a whole, probably, was Super Mario Brothers, the very first original Super Mario game, which are the games we're going to be concentrating on today. Do you guys have memories of playing this game for the first time?
Oh yeah,
I'm too young.
Oh yeah, I have tons. I remember being and I swear this is true, being 3 years old and playing it at my parents had friends, and I played it. So that would have been like 1989 when that happened.
Well, what did you think? I mean, what first impressions?
Well, sorry, I thought Piddle was saying something there. First impressions, well, I mean, it was amazing. Like, I had never seen anything like that before, and I know it's the game that drove me to just demand, I guess as a child, I don't remember this part, but I remember getting it for Christmas and Duck Hunt, and playing it, and that being one of the only Nintendo games that I had for years, and I would just play it every day, and still could. That game, I could go on and on about it. It's hard for me to really be objective about it. I think it's still one of the best games of all time, but I know that it probably really isn't, and how it originally existed.
I'm not quite there. Like, I will definitely I will appreciate what Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers did for the industry as a whole, because it was huge and it was ultimately probably one of the most technologically advanced games at the time as well. And just the fact that Nintendo created a formula that has now lasted in platforming games for 30 plus years, and now this is Mario's 30th anniversary, so it's appropriate. But it works so well. And it continues to work today. So I do appreciate that Mario Brothers did that for the industry.
I played it so often, and I remember being a kid and not even being able to get through the first level for a really long time. But now it's at the point where I can go years without playing it, and if I pick it up and play it again, and I get to World 8, 4, and like the maze is just ingrained in my head. Like all the mazes of all those castle levels, I just have memorized.
Yeah, it is one of the few games I can beat like that. I can remember in college walking into a friend's room of people I'd only just met, and they asked me if I wanted to play Mario with them, and we were taking turns. And I just beat
then you took your turn, and then you beat
I
the
beat
game.
I beat the whole game on my turn, and they're like, "Get out! You're not welcome."
That's the reason I didn't have any friends in college either. I would just beat everybody at the N64 Super Smash Brothers.
It was so sad.
Like, well, that was over.
Because I saw them playing Mario 3 later, and I was like, oh, I could do it again, but no, I'm banned.
No.
So following the first game was Super Mario Brothers 2, but it only came out in Japan.
Yeah.
Because it was too difficult for those poor United States babies.
I don't agree that it was too difficult for us, but I do agree that it's pointlessly difficult in a lot of ways that went against the ideas of the original. And it can be fun in that way that beating a really hard challenge is, but it feels not intuitive at times versus how Mario games normally introduce difficult elements.
And I feel the same way as a tangent about like Zelda 2. Like it was not only was it incredibly different from the first game, but it was also incredibly difficult and for reasons that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And I agree with you. I feel the same way about the Lost Levels. Why did it need to be so hard?
Well, we could go a ways into comparing those two games. Zelda 2 as a comparison is interesting because that game did a lot of things different, whereas Mario 2 had some new ideas, but they were all really like, oh, they trick you. It was like, here, jump over this pit. Oh, just kidding, there's wind. Here, take this mushroom. Oh, just kidding, it kills you. Like, hey, remember how flowers won't come out of the pipe when you stand next to it? Oops, that doesn't work anymore. Like, they did a lot of things that feel like player-made hacks, like hard in a confusing way.
Which is kind of appropriate considering
That's
the
a
spirit
really
of
good way
Super
to put
Mario
it.
Maker. So, would you agree with that? That Super Mario Maker kind of embodies that spirit of Mario 2?
I think it
being able to,
embodies both, really. Like, a lot of players, I think, go straight for that, like, I've mastered the game and I want something impossible. And I think Nintendo is also hoping that we can get more of the, just good level design.
Yeah.
So, Piddle, what did you think of Mario 2 the first time you played it? Because obviously most of us didn't play it until very recently, probably.
I'm pretty much in the same boat as Nick. It really just tricked you, and I remember like the first time picking up a poison mushroom and dying and being like, wait, what was that? That's not fair. So it was a frustrating game in a lot of ways. I enjoyed it just because I'm a type of gamer that I like that kind of challenge, and especially in
You do like to torture yourself, yeah.
especially in platformers. I don't like games where it's like just challenging, but then it takes you like die and it takes you like 15 minutes to get back to where you were. That's tediousness to me, but Mario Bros. 2 wasn't really like that. So I enjoyed it in the end, but it definitely is designed more towards people who wanted a bigger challenge after Mario 1.
Did you play it first on All-Stars version? Because that's when I played it, was when Mario All-Stars came out.
I actually played it first with Super Mario Brothers Deluxe.
It was on the Game Boy Color?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get to that one. I did not actually
Yeah, we're gonna
realize
talk
it was
about that
in,
one.
and I own it.
It is. You have to like unlock everything in the game first.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
So I mentioned Zelda 2, and I think this is appropriate at this point to bring it up again because in 1988, Doki Doki Panic came out in the United States. Only it wasn't called Doki Doki Panic. It was called Super Mario Bros. 2, and it had Mario characters in it. This is now 3 years after the first Mario game. And do you guys remember at all how this was received or what you first thought of it? Again, I'm sort of out of my element because I played all these games a lot later.
I wasn't old enough to have a perception of like the market receiving it, and I mean there wouldn't have been internet at the time, so it really would have just been magazines. So
Right.
I have no idea. I know that personally I was like, I thought it was fun, but it was hard in a way that made me not want to play it as much as the other Mario games, so I always felt a little weird about it. I've grown to appreciate it a lot more since they remade it, but I don't know. It was a
I'm in the
little
same boat.
disappointing at the time, even though it was a fun game.
It was sort of neat, and I remember being really impressed by how it looked, and that was sort of one of the big things of Super Mario Brothers 2 US. But it was like the controls. I didn't like the controls as much. I didn't like how you attacked enemies. Like you couldn't stomp on their heads anymore. It didn't feel right to me, and I never really liked it that much. I've beaten it, but even to this day, I don't really consider it part of the Mario series personally.
Wow. I don't know. I don't really have a whole lot to say on it myself. I just sort of feel like it's kind of there, and it's and you can play it, but it just ultimately it feels more like a relic than anything that really needs to be celebrated as part of like a core Mario series. Although that being said, I do feel like it's a better option than the Lost Levels because I feel like it's a better game.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't have all those like ridiculous elements that are just that just feel mean. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I would agree with that.
Following that was actually my favorite Mario game thus far. It was on Game Boy. It was called Super Mario Land.
Oh, it hurts me
And-
that you say that, but keep going.
Why?
Because
It's
it's fun, but it's missing some like design there that's not right.
I understand that, and this is probably nostalgia talking for me, similar to you in the first Super Mario Brothers. But this was actually, I think this might be the first Mario game I played that was not called Mario 64. So it was my first Mario side-scroller. When I was a kid, I had a Game Boy, and I got the game, and I played it, and I played it, and I played it. And I'm like, this is a fun, it was just a fun game for me. And like I said, probably my first 2D platformer, like seriously. So,
Personally,
yeah.
I loved it. I remember playing it over and over again. I lost my cartridge eventually, which is a shame, but I loved
you can
how
buy it on 3DS.
I loved how like the fireballs act differently. I sort of wish that would come back. All the levels played a little differently, but I mean, it still felt very much like Mario, like how you could jump on top of the levels, go through the pipes. I mean, I don't know. The game's really memorable to me, and I also
like the music a lot too.
The star
Yeah, the
theme is interesting. It's an actual song. I forget the name though. It's not the normal Invincible music.
It's the Can.
Yeah, I think that is it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then I really liked the side-scrolling underwater levels.
The ship.
Oh, the ones where he's in the submarine?
Yes.
See, I've
Yeah,
never
I
played
like
that
those too.
part. I just remember reading about it a ton and thinking it was kind of neat, but I was confused. I was like, why is this here?
So you didn't like Super Mario Land a lot? Why is that exactly?
Well,
We need
it's
to move on,
interesting
but-
because I think a lot of it is based on the fact that I just skipped right over it and I started with 2, and then I read about 1 a bunch and thought it would be fun, and then I think I just remember playing it once and being underwhelmed by it.
2 was very different.
Well, 2 was more like other Mario games in terms of its
Yeah.
appearance and controls.
It was
think-
much closer to Mario
I think if
World
I went back to
than-
Land again, because it's been years since I played it, I might feel a little bit differently because I have more of an appreciation for some of the games I used to dislike.
I would definitely recommend it. But we got to move on. Super Mario Brothers 3, revealed in the 1989 movie The Wizard.
Yeah.
Which was basically an advertisement for that. And
I
the
have
Power
to point
Glove
out
and
before
the
we say
NES.
anything, hold on. I have to point out that when I was a kid, this is the first time I observed like how different things must be when a game is being developed, because the box art shows you like I think 2 different images from a development version of the game that just don't exist in the final product. Like I just always thought that was the weirdest thing, and maybe I would always wonder like what if, and yeah.
But Piddle, I know you're a huge fan of the game, so just take it away and tell us why it's so good.
Well, it just, they really imbued a lot of what we take for granted now in like Mario in terms of the style and the characters.
Power-ups, man.
And yeah, the power-ups, the world, like the backgrounds. It's really simple, but the backgrounds started to have more life to them. I don't know, everything about Mario 3, it introduced all the different types of worlds and all the different themes of every level.
To me, it did feel like the first Mario game that really had a real personality to it.
It definitely
Yes.
did, with all the different themed lands and the like. You could the fact that the map made it seem like there was more beyond what you could play. Like you'd look at elements of the map and think, what would the level be like if it was there?
Yeah.
And how the entire game is essentially a play.
Yeah, that play thing was cool. Although it always bugged me as a kid that Mario could look up in that opening, and he could not do that in the actual
And he
game.
couldn't do it in the rest of
It
the
didn't
game.
make any sense. I was like, why?
Yeah.
I never even realized that until you just mentioned
Yeah,
it.
but because they put it in Mario World, and somehow they managed to put it in the opening of the game, but they never made it an actual ability for some reason. Who knows?
They were teasing Super Mario World.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a
must have
feature
been.
they added late and it didn't work, so they were like, "Oh well, next time."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to just narrow down exactly what makes Mario Brothers 3 so good because there's so much to
Well,
it.
the physics are good. It has a lot of really awesome rules for how the world works. It has a lot of little things, like when you hit the left or right side of a block and a mushroom comes out, it goes left or right, like to the opposite
Yeah.
side that you hit. That's never been in any other game. You know,
It has a bunch of Easter eggs in it. It has all the secrets
It's
to find.
beautiful, too.
yeah, it looks really good.
Game looks really good for an NES game.
It has
And just the sheer variety of the levels is also pretty astounding because, I mean, you have not only the castles that all have their own sort of like unique theme, but then the desert, the water world, it's too much.
The individual levels are usually about something. Like it's the first Mario game where they go with that, like this level, here's the, you would say gimmick, but just the idea. It'll be platforms or they introduce you to scrolling, and it's just one thing at a time.
I think we should go ahead and move on. If you haven't
Yeah.
played Super Mario Brothers 3, go play it. It's freaking amazing. You can get it on Wii, you can get it on Wii U, you can get it on 3DS, I think. You can buy an old school NES and just play it, and it's so much fun. And people will criticize me because I still haven't finished it, but what I have played is really, really good. So let's brush over that and go to Super Mario World, a game that I have finished.
Oh
Came
my
out in
God.
1991 as a launch title for Super Nintendo, and it is, in a word, perfection in side-scrolling platform.
Can I start on this one?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead.
This is the first game that I've 100%ed, with only one time where I can know I specifically used a guide. And I remember always being really proud of that, and always just being amazed how many more things I hadn't unlocked when I first got this game, and how impressive all the little things were. Like it echoed when he was in a cave and jumped, or just like the scope of the world.
They added a lot more things to it too, gameplay-wise. Like they added the switches, they like different colored blocks, switch palaces, secret exits all over the place.
Like
So good.
man, the new boss battles, like the new mechanics, like climbing on fences, like so many things in that game. It felt like the peak of what they could do.
Not to mention the fact that the game still holds up visually like today,
Yeah.
and even at the time it looked amazing as a Super Nintendo launch title.
Yeah.
Like they really pushed it to its limits, like the likes of which they didn't really do again until like Super Metroid or Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah,
you know?
well, and everything that surpassed it, they had to jam more hardware inside the cartridge. So Mario World really was like, look what this system can do right out of the gate.
Yeah.
The only
16
thing
bits.
I also 100% in Super Mario World. Loved every minute of it. It's easily one of my favorite platformers of all time. The only thing that ever disappointed me about Super Mario World was that I felt like it lacked, for whatever reason, I felt like it lacked like the character of Super Mario Brothers 3 just a little bit. And it didn't have quite as many power-ups. It focused more on the Yoshis than anything. But other than that, Super Mario World is just fantastic. The control is tight. The secrets are plentiful. Really can't say enough about it.
Yeah, it's super awesome. Like that and Mario Brothers 3 to be released basically within 2 years. It's an incredible feat by Nintendo to be able to produce like two platformers of such amazing quality in that same time frame.
And importantly, you could save. You know, you couldn't in Mario 3 and everything before. There was no saving, and Mario World finally fixed that.
And this was back before save states, kids. They didn't have those back then. So.
I mean, saving wasn't really a thing with Nintendo until the first Zelda, and even then, it wasn't in most games, anyways.
It wasn't like a standard thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we wanted to mention Mario is Missing, which came out in 1992, which is often criticized for being.
People have been talking about this game, we have been a little bit, and I just remember being so ridiculously confused by what is this, but somehow still intrigued. But my TV, my old crappy CRT, just was on the wrong setting and blurry. So in that game, part of it is just answering questions about history trivia.
So this is an educational
kind of, yeah. And it was literally impossible for me to complete for like the first day or two until one of my parents noticed and was like, you can't read anything because of the contrast or something like that. So the game had low marks for me from the start. Like, it wasn't much of a Mario game. It's just pointing out like it just used random Mario World assets in order to be something completely unrelated from Mario.
It's so weird that they even did something like this.
Yeah.
And we're already spending more time on it.
That's all I have to say. It was just like, this is what happens when you just decide to throw something together with another game's assets.
Oddly enough, as a kid, I really liked Mario is Missing. I beat the game and everything.
Yeah.
You're one of those kids that was either like homeschooled or no one wanted to hang out with, because those are the people that liked Mario. I'm sorry, but I'm just truth telling right now. Next up, we have Super Mario Land 2, which came out on the Game Boy in 1992. We kind of mentioned it already. I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's good. It's like Super Mario World on Game Boy, kind of.
Mario Land 2 is great.
Yeah,
I loved that.
I
game.
honestly think it's the best portable Mario game to ever exist.
You guys are.
Yeah,
It's fine.
See, I played this on my original Game Boy all of the time and thought it was great. It had a lot of unique ideas that fit right in with Mario. Like it had a space level where he's in a space suit and has low gravity. And it was similar to water, but it was really new and unique. And they didn't do it again until Mario Galaxy. So it was pretty cool for its time.
Oh, I love that space level because you just like jump and go really, really high.
And it also gave us the character of Wario, although
as a
villain, yeah, that didn't really last long. He just became a jerk rather than a villain.
Wow.
I don't know, Mario Land 2 was really clever. It's one of the only Mario games where you have a very high degree of choice over which levels you want to play first, because the worlds themselves are all accessible. And that was its big selling point, is you have to beat all of them to beat the game, but you can beat them in whatever order you want.
I played through Mario Land 2 so many times, and I mean it's just a charming game. Like I said, probably the best portable Mario game as far as I'm concerned. The only thing is the platforming, I guess, wasn't quite as quick. It was a little bit slower paced just because of the small screen.
I felt it was a little easier too. I thought it was easier than Mario Land.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and go forward. At that point, we had a long wait between the next true Mario game. Super Mario All-Stars came out in 1993. It was a remake. or rather, I guess they just packaged a bunch of games together, put it out on Super Nintendo. And incidentally, they also would re-release it later on the Wii. That's right, guys? I'm not messing up there, am I?
No.
Okay.
It pretty much like gave updated graphics to all the Nintendo games.
Is it worth playing? I mean, like as
if
compared
you played
to
the games separately, not really.
Mario All-Stars is not worth paying $50 for in Wii unless you're really a big enthusiast. But the games, it is pretty cool to see them in the updated graphics. Now that they've kind of made HD versions of the original game's graphics for Mario Maker, it's lost a little bit of its edge. But at the time, it was a really awesome way to play, and it lets you save in those games. That's important.
No, that'd be nice.
It gives you the ability to save.
Following that, another Game Boy game. This was the first ever Wario Land game, but it was called Wario Land Super Mario Land 3, so we have to mention it. It was the last Super Mario Land game.
Yeah, they switched over to just Wario after that because.
And Wario Land, by the way, is a very, very good series.
It's pretty varied. I would agree with you that it's good overall. I'm in the middle of Wario Land 3. But I barely played the first one. I know all about it and like its hats and everything. It's kind of like a weird alternate version of a Mario world.
Yeah, it's a great similar spin to Mario, just a little different.
And then next, in 1995 on Super Nintendo, one of all of our favorite Super Mario games came out. It was Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island.
Yeah.
Also not a true Mario game, but
very different.
For a game that was not a true Mario game, was an amazing game.
Yeah.
So
it's hard. I'd almost want to refrain from saying much, because it really did. If no sequels were made, I'd have more to say. But it really feels like its own series. It's so drastically different from Mario and what it expects out of you. Like, it has timers, but only when you lose Baby Mario. It has power-ups, but they're in the form of transformations. Like, I don't know, we could do a whole separate Yoshi series review on that one.
Yeah, and here's I'll just give you a preview of what that franchise review would be. Yoshi's Island is an amazing game. All the other ones are mediocre to terrible. The end.
I hope you enjoyed that, everyone. That's 2 franchise reviews in one.
What did you think of Yoshi's Island, Piddle?
Didn't like it, sir. Wait, what?
What?
I actually didn't like Yoshi's Island at all.
Moving on, here we go. So this is probably the biggest one, maybe on the entire list. Everyone talks about how Super Mario Brothers brought the industry back and how Super Mario World was so amazing and Mario Brothers 3 was, so great. But in my mind, Super Mario 64 is not only the best Mario game, but is also the most important Mario game, because not only did it was it a good game in its own right, it also changed the industry like forever, really. I mean, every 3D platform that has ever been made is pretty much modeled after this game.
Yeah. You know how I feel about Super Mario 64.
Yeah, and how I feel for that matter. But the only one we don't know is Nick. How do you feel about Super Mario 64 and its incredibleness?
Well, I don't think that's for me. That's not a simple question because I love playing it and I have a lot of memories of loving it. And I never owned it until the DS version, so I would just rent it constantly. And I'm when I didn't have it, I would read the player's
I'm
guide.
curious. Did the people save your file?
No, your file would be gone.
Deleted?
So, but starting
That's
over
sad.
for me, when you rent a game, like I'd always want to start over anyways, usually. And if I really wanted to play further in the game, there's usually a completed save file. So it was never a big deal. But see, I have a lot of nostalgia for the game, but when I think about it in terms of what it is by today's standards, it has tons of issues, so I don't see it as a game that stands on its own still. I see it as a game that for its time was revolutionary and did change gaming, but because of that, we've been able to make games that improved on it or fixed problems that it had.
I'm curious what issues you think those are, because I know Zyber has a number of issues with the game.
Well, people tend to
praise
the controls and the camera, even though they're not really great by like Mario Galaxy standards, which controls very well. They're not terrible, but it's not impressive. What's impressive is the general level design and the way that the game is laid out and the way it lets you discover secrets. That's the kind of thing that I think holds up well. It has the limitations of 1996 hardware and inexperience with 3D movement.
It's hard to disagree with that. I don't know. I never found the camera in that particular game to be as big of a problem as other people seem to. I mean, maybe that's just me, but I always felt like it never really got in my way. Not like in future Mario games, which
maybe
I'm
not a
gonna
ton,
complain
but
about
it
in a
just somehow feels like I'm not as in control as I'd like to be without having to. I don't know. It doesn't like. I guess my benchmark is games where you don't really have much camera control, which is like Mario Galaxy.
Yeah. Well, games without a lot of camera control, the developers spend so much time making sure that that camera viewpoint is ideal. And with Super Mario 64, that was one of the more frustrating things, is whenever you did levels where you sort of had to control the camera yourself, sometimes you just couldn't get the camera in the right position, and it became frustrating. And the controls were, although really, really good, we've come so far with video game controls and camera movement since then, and just like letting the players feel like they're in such control and can do whatever they want, that those little details of like the controls can be frustrating, especially going back.
The easiest way to compare it is to play Throwback Galaxy and Mario Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
And you can feel it immediately. And that's kind of how I started to think about it, because before that point, I probably would have defended Mario 64 as standing up to modern games, and then I realized that, well, it almost does. But there is a lot to be improved on.
Yes.
Well, luckily they did get around to that. But I still think on its own that Super Mario 64 is a very important game. It's still one of my favorite games because I'm used to it, because it was actually the first video game I ever played was Super Mario 64. So that was the original benchmark for me. So anyway, moving on, Super Mario Brothers Deluxe came out in 1999, which is actually, I think, the biggest gap between Mario game. That's the biggest gap between a Mario game since it came out. It took 3 years, and that was on Game Boy Color, and it was actually a remake of the first Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, and Super Mario Brothers 2: The Lost Levels, all on one cartridge for your enjoyment.
It was neat.
There wasn't really much different from it other than it had saving. Like, you could save, you could replay levels at any point after you beat the game.
Yeah, that was cool. It had hidden items. It had hidden Yoshi eggs and hidden red coins.
It was also a really good way to. This was like the original remaster almost. It was like it brought back the original like Super Mario Brothers, like for all the kids who hadn't played it yet and stuff like that. Just like a new generation of Mario fans.
This was the beginning of the hardcore re-release era of Mario games.
Yeah.
But the Game Boy Color one, or what's the only one for the original Deluxe, had a critical flaw in that they didn't shrink the game down in a way where you could see the same amount of things you could see in the original version, so the screen was actually shorter, and that did make certain jumps harder if you didn't have it memorized.
Yeah, you had to use the select button, I believe, in order to sort of force Mario to the far left of the screen so you could see more of what was to the right.
Yeah.
I never played the game myself, so I'm not familiar with the problems you're describing.
Well, you can get it because it's on the 3DS.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Super Mario Deluxe or Brothers Deluxe, for me, it was the game that really made me fall in love with the original Super Mario Brothers. And I mean, I don't love it so much anymore just because there's so many other options now that are better. But yeah. I really, really enjoyed playing through Super Mario Brothers Deluxe.
So not really worth it today, but back then was kind of like a revelation in how you play Mario games.
Yeah.
Also, incidentally, was this the first time that the Lost Levels was released in the United States, or was
that was
All
Stars?
Super Nintendo?
That was All Stars because that came out in 1993.
Yeah.
Okay. Following that, we had two new systems. We had the Game Boy Advance and the Nintendo GameCube. All three of which saw a fair number of Mario games, but only a few Super Mario games. And in fact, no Super Mario game on Game Boy Advance that was not a remake. Super Mario Advance 1 and 2 were both released in 2001. And I'm about to go ahead and say the wrong thing. What were the remakes?
I'll do that. Super
Nick?
Mario Advance remade Mario 2 as we knew it. And then Mario Advance 2 remade Mario World.
Yeah, I have Mario Advance 2, and I also have Mario Advance 3, which came later. But I never played the Game Boy Advance version of Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, so the first one was really, it was an interesting choice. I remember being like, you're going to choose this over Mario 3, which inevitably was the last one to release.
Right.
It didn't really change much except for introducing these weird like giant item balls that contained multiple different things that you could pull out of the ground like turnips, and they had, I think, hidden Yoshi eggs in that game as well that were in the little sub world. And then they added in sound bites, Mario going ha ha, just what I needed.
Just what I needed.
And now we've had it until we got to the modern games, so we had that for years.
Also, I would like to point out that Nintendo's marketing campaign for the Game Boy Advance was excellent. The way they like sort of targeted people with these older Mario games, but presenting them as like something that was entirely new, which to us they were, because this was like my era of gaming when I was a kid. And like I remember seeing these advertisements and thinking, that looks really cool. I got to get a Game Boy Advance to play these games.
Yeah, I was pretty excited just to be able to play them on a portable.
I think I just have to throw it out there real quick, but couldn't you use the e-card reader with Super Mario Advance 2?
I want to say maybe.
And you could play new Super Mario Brothers 3 levels. It was the only reason I really wanted the Super Mario Advance games.
I have the e-reader. I don't have the cards for that. I have some Mario Party e-cards.
I have all of the Mario 3 e-cards, and they do some amazing things that need to be carried over into Mario Maker. Things like there's remakes of other games' levels. They added the Cape Feather to use in any Mario 3 level that you want. Turnips can go in every single level in Mario 3. Like, it was kind of incredible.
Wow. Yeah, it's sort of like the beginning of Nintendo like messing with their own games and just sort of seeing like how the technology would work.
Those will be the amiibo features for Super Mario Maker.
Yeah. Following those two was Super Mario Sunshine in 2002. And it was really, really amazing at the time for me. I got it on Christmas morning with my Nintendo GameCube, and I wrote a great article about this back when we had a website called the ZB.net. And I posted it up on there, and it was a really interesting story. Like, it's pretty much the epitome of nostalgia for me, because I remember that Christmas really well. And I really, really loved Super Mario Sunshine until I played it again last year, and I realized that, well, it wasn't quite as good as I remember.
For me, I personally, I didn't love Super Mario Sunshine, but a lot of the changes it made from Super Mario 64 I really enjoyed, like the free camera with the C-stick. I really liked that. The game was absolutely gorgeous, and for me, I think it just struggled from it. It sort of struggled because it all sort of, the world wasn't as diverse as we were used to, and I mean, even though like the levels were, it just, the personality of the world around it just wasn't quite to the same level. Yeah, it was like
tropical.
Yeah, and it sort of suffered because, like some other GameCube games, Nintendo really cut the development cycle short and rushed it out. And so in order to fill up a lot of the content, they had
to, because GameCube kind of struggled out of the gate.
Yeah, they added a lot of the blue coins. So I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's not my favorite Mario game just because the world just doesn't have the personality of other Mario games that I sort of like. I like to see.
Yeah, I was excited when I first got it, but that game really felt kind of like a letdown to me after Mario 64, and because my file glitched out so that I couldn't get the last blue coin, but the game recorded me getting it, so it took it off the world, but it didn't record it on my counter with a save glitch, and so that sort of poisoned me against the game. And now in recent years, when I've tried to replay it, I've just found it kind of boring.
I feel more like than anything, it just hasn't aged well, more than it wasn't good at launch. Like, for something about it just doesn't feel quite right.
The whole game, I would agree. I think there are elements of it that were cool. See, overall, I kind of like the water pack flood.
Yeah, I do too. I felt like it added some cool like little gameplay
and
elements.
The bonus levels, which were basically like preview of what Mario Galaxy would become, were really fun.
I liked those too.
That's sort of one of the sad parts about like Super Mario Sunshine is a lot of people, when they talk about Super Mario Sunshine, they talk about the best parts of the game being all the bonus levels. And like when I think about my favorite parts of my favorite Mario Brothers games, like 3 or 64, or I mean, even some of the newer ones, it's because of like the life and the vibrancy that the worlds offer. And that just is not a part of Sunshine for me at all.
I think we can move on from Sunshine. Mario Advance 3 came out in 2002, which we mentioned. That's actually Yoshi's Island.
Yeah, we can skip right over that. Mario Advance 4, we actually kind of talked about anyways in the e-reader.
Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
That came out in 2003. And then, after another long wait, and actually, let's see here. I believe it was the first new Mario like side-scroller since Super Mario Land 2, if you're not going to count Wario Land. So it was the first one in about 14 years, and it was New Super Mario Brothers on the DS, and Nick and I have very differing opinions on this, so I'll let you go ahead and go first.
I was thrilled when this game came out, and I still have the player's guide for it, but I've since sold my original copy, and I have no desire, although with Mario Maker pending and my Mario Fever at its pitch, I might download it again from Wii U, but it
is on Wii U.
Even with some of the bland design of New Super Mario Bros. 2, I still prefer all the other games in that series over this one, because this one to me feels the most just like pandery, like, look, it's like the original Mario, and it's painful to me that the best new power-up was the shell. Like, or the mini mushroom, I guess I should say. That was more interesting than the shell.
So I agree that it was pandering to people who were like fans of the original game, but at the same time, I also feel like the gameplay was very tight. I felt the game had a lot of great levels, I thought, and I really liked it. There's just nothing else I can say about it. I liked the levels more than anything else.
Like, in 2006, it didn't make sense to me on the DS that they were going to after releasing. I think Yoshi's Island was either being worked on or already released, and even though it was bad, Super Princess Peach, like, these are two games that had a better graphical style, in my opinion.
Those games were gorgeous, like, I will give you that.
It's New Super Mario Brothers, and I don't know if you saw the previews of that game in 2005 before it released, but it looked awful. It looked like just they made 3D models and then...
I had Nintendo Power, Nick. I remember the previews.
God, like, that game is so bland looking, and I think that's part of it. I think maybe if I revisit it, I might change my opinion about the level design being okay, but the looks of it are so bad.
I'm not going to deny any of that stuff. But I just felt like, I don't know. I really liked it. Maybe it hit at the right time in my life, but I even played it yesterday while I was waiting for a concert because QJ had it in her 3DS, and I was playing it. I'm like, yeah, this is fun, and it's just a fun game for me. I don't know. And go ahead, Piddle.
Nick. Yeah, I'm exactly with Nick. The same boat. I didn't like New Super Mario Brothers very much. The controls were excellent. The graphics disappointed me, just like Nick. I really didn't like the movement, like the move towards the 3D models. Although, I mean, it makes sense in the grand scheme of things, but I didn't like it with Super Mario Brothers or New Super Mario Brothers. And for me, the big issue is comparing New Super Mario Brothers to Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World. It just didn't even hold a candle to those games. It lacked, like, the games they have no vertical element to them, essentially. There's very, very little vertical element except for like a few levels, which I enjoyed more, especially when you had to use wall jumping more. And the power-ups, like Nick, the power-ups were really, they didn't add much to the game except for the mini mushroom. The super mushroom.
They let you go places and get like the star coins, which, by the way, I felt like getting the star coins in that game really added a lot to it. Like, I actually wanted to go and find them because I thought they found a lot of interesting places to put them, and that involved strategic usage of the power-ups.
I mean, that was neat, but it wasn't new. Mario World had dragon coins.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I don't know. In Mario World, I never really felt the need to collect the dragon coins, but in this one, I felt like they were giving you reasons to want to collect them, to get extra lives or to get specific power-ups. Like, you could go into those houses on the overworld and get that stuff. Yeah. And I think, like I said, for me, it just hit at the right time. And maybe I wouldn't have enjoyed it as much as if it came out later, simply because I did not enjoy any of the other Super Mario Brothers games, the new Super Mario Brothers games, which we'll get to in a minute. But that's enough
See, that
of that
means you
because
just
we
like
need
something simpler. I'm so sorry.
Oh wow, that's nice.
Oh,
So-
I'm not going to disagree with him either.
wow. Okay. Well, next was Super Mario Galaxy. Came out in 2007. It was the first. Actually, I was just about to say it was the first Nintendo console not to have a Mario game at launch, but GameCube had Luigi's Mansion and no other Mario games. But I digress. The Wii at the time was a system that was pretty much exploding all over the
Yeah.
place. And I think this game was like the tipping point. It just like sent everything over the falls. And
I would
Mario
disagree with
Galaxy,
that. I think you're thinking of Mario
No?
Kart there, but because Wii Sports
Well-
carried the system until Mario Kart. But Mario Galaxy was an important game.
Yeah.
I
And it
think
did
that's a
very
fair
well.
statement. Yeah. But anyway, Super Mario Galaxy I felt was a masterpiece at the time, and I still feel like it holds up very well. It's very interesting. I didn't like the fact that there wasn't like a legit hub world that made you feel like everything was connected.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing.
Super Mario
but
64.
the levels themselves, I
Yeah.
thought, were leagues beyond any of the best components of Sunshine, and immediately on par for me, at least, with my favorite parts of Mario 64.
I know Piddle and I have similar opinions on this game regarding the hub world and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
I'll let you go ahead.
the hub
anyway.
world just wasn't what I'd like. The game still had a lot of like magical parts. I mean, I remember seeing the very first video of the introduction sequence with Bowser like flying in on his airship, and the graphics just looked absolutely gorgeous. They still
They did,
do.
didn't they? Yeah.
They still do, which is just like
Yeah, with a
It says a
resolution
lot
bump, that
about
game would
Nintendo's-
immediately hold its own. It was that good.
yeah, it
Yeah.
says a lot about Nintendo's art design. And I really enjoyed a lot of the levels. I think for me, one of the parts that really brought it down for me is the power-ups again. Just left a lot to be desired.
I'm having trouble
Um,
even remembering some of the power. There
Yeah.
was like Spring Mario and
B
Rock
Mario,
those- some of
Ghost
the-
Mario.
some of those-
there was the
B
fly.
Mario
There
was
was the
good.
weird like you can just fly now power up in the 1 or 2
Mhm.
levels that was in.
Yeah, it was just like you had these power-ups that were just so like you didn't really have them very often, and they were only like used. they were,
Fire
like,
Fire Mario
specifically
came
designed
back
for
in an
certain
amazing
parts.
way. That game brought in the feeling to me, although later games did it better, of like Mario 3 and Mario World in terms of having these cool power-ups that you use in some levels, whereas Mario 64 had that, but it always felt different, and Sunshine basically didn't have it.
So, I don't know. I love Super Mario Galaxy still. It's still a great game. The control was great. You didn't have to fiddle with the camera anymore. I don't like going back and playing it so much now just because I'm so beyond sick of the Wii waggle.
Plus, Galaxy 2 was better anyway,
Yes, it was.
which you can just.
Yeah.
But actually,
it was still a great game.
there were a number of Super Mario games on Wii. In fact, there were 3 of them. And then in 2009, New Super Mario Brothers Wii came out, and it introduced a 4-player Mario side-scrolling experience.
See,
and it was a disaster, if I may say
so you may
myself.
not say so, because even though some people hate it and you hear the multiplayer get bashed on a lot, I can still vividly remember how excited I was and my friends were when we got this and how we were having fun. And I'd read about like these people apparently hating each other to the point of wanting to kill one another. And I'm like, they must have never played Four Swords together and just learned how to adapt to that. Because like, I don't know.
Or just killed all
Like,
your friends.
I also
and then you
didn't
just play the game
constantly
by
play it with
yourself.
4 people. I played it with people that weren't jerks and like 2 people at a time.
Or at least people who are good at Mario games. See, I don't have anyone in my
Yeah.
life who's actually like really
and,
good at
and
Mario games.
I wouldn't
so
say
that's
that
my
New Mario
problem.
Brothers Wii exactly had like explosively cool level design, but it brought back a lot of important things that they didn't bother with in the DS version, like Yoshi, and it had a couple new ideas like the propeller hat. And it was, in general, to me, it was just a lot more interesting to play. And I wish that they had started with that one instead of the DS one.
I'd agree with that. That I sort of wish that they had started with the New Super Mario Brothers on the Wii instead of the one on the DS. It was just, I really liked it. The challenge was definitely there, and I feel like it had a lot more to offer. Again, it was sort of an issue with the waggle I could have done without.
And then following that, of course, we had one more Super Mario game, and it was Super Mario Galaxy 2, which at the time when it was announced, I'm like, because at the time it was announced, I was all out on video games. I was not playing video games. I had not touched my Wii in like a year, almost a year, and I just wasn't interested anymore. And then it came out, and I remember I just bought it because I don't know. I felt like I owed Nintendo something for like trying to make a hardcore game again, and I was back in. It was so good.
Yeah, I really, really liked that game. Of course, anytime Yoshi comes back, I'm excited, and I thought that I did not miss the hub world at all because it's clear that they took the time for just straight up good level design, and it worked out.
Yeah, in that one, I felt like the level design was way better than the first Mario Galaxy, which is why I didn't miss the hub world.
The difficulty curve. So see, I always see people saying that Galaxy 2 was harder, and I think it might be at the top, but the curve of difficulty in that game is so much better than the first one.
I will agree with that as well.
I don't know.
And I'm a little different with Galaxy 2. I really like the gameplay design. I can't argue with it at all. It lacked a sense of cohesion that I felt like Super Mario 64 had. And that's about my only complaint that I have with it.
Yeah, I can see that. It is just basically a string of level ideas.
Yeah, but that's sort of what the Mario games had become at that point. Like it took a while before they really started to.
Yeah, and in a minute here we'll get to the next. In a few games from now, we'll get to one of the games that I think kind of brought back a little bit the idea of having direction. But I'll wait on that one.
Super Mario 3D Land came out in 2011 for the for the struggling 3DS at the time, and it came out the same year as Mario Kart 7. Is that right?
I think that's true. Yeah.
And together with that game, it really kind of brought the 3DS back from almost the dead. And actually, I thought Mario 3D Land was really, really good. It was one of my favorite games that came out that year. It encouraged me. It was one of the reasons I bought a 3DS, along with playing Ocarina of Time 3D. And I really enjoyed it. And I know a lot of people don't feel the same way, but I feel like it's the quintessential like portable Mario experience.
It was really fun. It just felt like a small-scale Galaxy game. In the end of the day, that's what it was. I didn't really appreciate how the last world was just brutal versions of older levels. That annoyed me a little. And even though 3D World did the same thing later, it was better. But I don't know, 3D Land, it was fun. It was when they were still on their Mario 3 Raccoon Tail binge. So it was kind of a useless power-up in that game, but it was still interesting.
It was essentially like the Princess Daisy or Princess Peach float ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was also the first game that introduced the like white raccoon, the gold white raccoon thing that let you like live
just
forever.
Invincible mode, basically.
And a lot of people had a problem with that, but I'm like, you don't have to get the item. It's just for the kids who don't know what they're doing, and even that doesn't help you from like not.
I didn't understand. Honestly, I thought that approach was much less useful than the Mario Galaxy approach of just watching the AI finish the level for you. Like that to me still makes more sense as an easy mode mechanic. Just let the game do it.
Maybe it's like handing the controller to your buddy who's better at games, and then like he finishes it.
Yeah, versus changing the rules of the game to be like you're just invincible. Like I'd rather watch it and then try it again later on my own, but have the opportunity to move on.
Yeah, but anyway, I really liked Mario 3D Land a lot. It remains one of my favorite games on 3DS. Not sure if it makes it into my top 50. It did last year.
I hope not.
But I will leave. Wow, that's nice. But I will leave that for later.
It was good for what it was. I felt like in terms of being a portable title, everything was very, very bite sized. And I mean, me personally, I felt like the levels are just like done as soon as it felt like they were getting started. And I feel like Nintendo was able to build on it in the future. But for me, it just lacked the challenge that I sort of look for.
So then following that, in 2012, we got another new Super Mario Brothers game. This one was also on 3DS. New Super Mario Brothers 2. And...
boy, this game.
I will go last.
This game, I download. I think this is the first game I digitally downloaded because I was excited to play it. And I remember having a blast with it. And it's interesting too because easily by the time I was done with it, I was already like, oh, okay, that wasn't anything too special. But Then I bought the retro coin rush mode packs, and those alone, for me at least, were enough to make the game fun. And the raccoon tail ability, but it's the second bottom for me on the list of the new games. Like, it doesn't really do a ton that's interesting.
Piddle, you played this game, right?
New Super Mario Brothers 2?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I played it.
Did you get a million coins?
I was pumped up for it. I collected a ton of the coins, and like, I enjoyed it enough when I played through it the first time, but I've tried to go back to it, and it is probably the least replayable Mario game that I think I've ever played. I get no enjoyment out of playing it anymore, and it's probably at the bottom of my list out of all the Mario games, unfortunately.
I'm trying to find the comments I specifically wrote to you on this game the other day, Piddle, because I thought they were really good. Okay, found it. So here's what I wrote. I wrote, New Super Mario Bros. 2 is the definition of mediocrity. They didn't even try. I said, worst Mario game? Maybe. And then Piddle compared it to Mario is Missing, which is what sort of brought that whole thing about. And I said, it leans so much on the coin...
I actually sort of enjoyed Mario is Missing as a kid.
I said, it leans so much on the coin collecting mechanic that they forgot to put an actual game around it. It's the most sterile, lackluster Mario game I've ever played, and it's not even a bad game. It's just devoid of everything that makes a Mario game good. And then I said, what else did I say? That's all I said.
Hey, you know, the one thing actually I did really like was the
say.
Coin flower that made you shoot coin fireballs.
Making it rain. Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I feel like that could easily have a place in any Mario game. Because it's like a P-switch that you can aim, basically.
All the power-ups were just sort of like, well, it makes
You know, that game was made by, like, their new, like, training team. Like, they literally stated, like, yeah, we have our newer guys do this one while the experienced ones work on the Wii U one. So that might help.
Yeah, well, I'm glad they worked on the Wii U one, because that game actually came out the same year as a launch title for the Wii U, New Super Mario Bros. U. And I stated earlier that I don't really like any of the New Super Mario Bros. Games in comparison to the DS one, but I forgot about this one for some reason. It's pretty good.
Great.
It's solid.
New Luigi U has the best level design, but this one's still
honestly,
I haven't
New
played
Super
it.
Mario Brothers U is my favorite in all the New Super Mario Brothers series.
Oh yeah, mine too.
Yeah. It just cuts out all the junk that I didn't really like in the other games. Adds a lot of new ideas. New Super Luigi U is fantastic.
Yeah, that is
it makes the overworld like relevant again, which it hadn't been since like Super Mario Brothers 3. Like, you actually have choices to make when you go to another level. Like, do you want to avoid the enemies, or do you want to like go try to get the power-ups or whatever, which is really cool. I'm glad they brought that back.
Yeah, I really like that game a lot, but I would center more towards Luigi U specifically, because that's, of all the games in the new series, that's the only one to me that really feels like it has compelling new interesting levels that are challenging but not too challenging. Sometimes they are too challenging, but for the overall it's one of the best ones.
I'm definitely going to have to get to New Super Luigi U at some point. I need to beat New Super Mario Brothers U first, but since I still have the bad taste of New Super Mario Brothers 2 in my mouth, so I don't think I'm going to go back to one of those games.
Luigi
right now.
is great, mostly having a restriction of 100 seconds per level does for the most part work in that game.
Yeah. Following that was Super Mario 3D World, also on Wii U. This was a game that flew so far under the radar that like nobody even really recognizes that it exists when mentioning like the best games in the Wii U's library.
It's so good. I know. I still like Galaxy 2 more, but the 3D World levels are really good. Like, a lot of them are very, very good, and the later worlds are really interesting. Like, the game kind of tricks you into being like, okay, here we go, Mario worlds, I know what's coming, and then it changes it up at the end.
And I think people were kind of sick of Mario at the time that this game was announced, because I remember the reaction to it being like, this is not the game Nintendo needed to sell Wii U's. And honestly, it wasn't, but that's
Mario
sort of
Maker is that game. Go back in time and release that as a launch title.
3D World is so... I mean, for me, it like I talked about Super Mario 3D Land. Super Mario 3D Land like added some cool concepts, but it was just too bite-sized for me. The levels were like over right as it felt like they got started, and Super Mario 3D World because it's a console title, they were finally able to make those levels bigger. So it's just like you have this challenge, and then that challenge is built upon, and then again and again, and it just got like.
And speaking of challenge, the last few levels in that game, all leading up to Champions Road, which is probably the most ridiculous level I've played in like any video game. I can't believe I like persevered and finally.
I didn't even get that far. I just watched videos
But
and
the
was like,
thing is-
"What is this madness?"
They added all of that, and they added it steadily, a little at a time, to the point where it felt fun even as you're failing over and over again, because you're like, I know I can do this because I did something similar to it before.
It was paced perfectly, kind of
So-
like this podcast actually.
So
Not gonna lie.
So it really did take that 2D style gameplay and turn it into 3D.
Yeah. And the power-ups were cool.
Really,
right?
really
They
well.
were just cool. Like, I thought for such a simple idea, the double cherry power-up was fantastic.
And didn't Cat Mario seem really lame to you the first
No,
time you
because I saw it. I
but-
saw what
it
it was
didn't?
used for, and I was like, okay, that could be cool. And people were saying it was lame. I was like, yeah, the design is lame, but you could isolate a lot of Mario designs, like individual elements, to be like, what is this?
Meow.
I mean, for me, Super Mario 3D World is almost as perfect as that type of Mario game can be. It lacks like the 3D immersion factor of Super Mario 64, and that's all I can really.
I think 3D
Hold
World of
against it.
all the games, the most feels like a 3D interpretation of one of the classic 2D games. Because Mario 64 and the
Yeah.
other, and even Galaxies kind of stand on their own legs. Galaxy's more similar, but 3D World really is like the
I
embodiment
think
of it.
calling it 3D World was like a really appropriate
Yeah.
title, actually, more so than comparing 3D Land to Super Mario
Yeah.
Land.
Definitely a lot. Well, they just
Um,
did that because it was portable, and that's what the portable series
Right.
used.
But I felt like this game really was like a 3D version of Super Mario World,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's almost that good too. Like
It's
as a game,
close.
I think it.
Yeah, if it's not
I think it will hold up like 20 years down the line. I think people will go back and say like, "Wow, we should have bought a Wii U. We were all wrong."
I hope so.
Probably
Yeah.
not.
I don't even know why I'd hope
I
that.
hope so.
There's so much disrespect for this little console that's
Okay.
already got two
Wait.
really good Mario games on it, and is getting Super Mario Maker today. Actually, if you are not playing it while you were listening to this podcast, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
I guess it is the future at the moment.
Although we are recording this, I think.
No, we're very, very good. We're recording this right
I mean,
now as it
something
launches.
really bad could happen, and the game could be really bad. But I don't. think
It's
so.
already out.
Yeah.
People confirmed it's not. Mario Maker.
Shut up, Nick.
Mario Maker is Mario Maker's the sequel. After Mario World, this is the next one. The rest are just a divergent timeline.
I have no
mean,
idea what you're talking about.
It was a Zelda.
I
It was
just
a
wanna make
Zelda
my own
timeline
levels.
joke.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
even know what direction they can go in with 2D Mario after this, other than
Don't you
adding-
feel like this is it? This is it.
No,
You
because
can't-
already within the bounds of Mario Maker are a lot of Mario elements that we all would recognize that are not usable. I think if anything, if they continue with making Mario games, they're either going to ditch 2D altogether and be like, sorry guys, or they'll be forced to be more innovative because players will have already used all the existing components, which is probably their plan anyways. Like,
I think it is, but I think I think for like 3D games will be the future of the series, and the Mario Maker style will continue to exist, but they'll add more ways to tweak and more gameplay elements to add into the levels.
yeah. For all we know, they could eventually use Mario Maker as a platform for new styles. They could release a game that like is also doubles as an updated version of Mario Maker. That's not, even though that sounds crazy, I don't think it's completely beyond the realm of possibility with Nintendo.
But you know what else is crazy is the fact that this Mario game is going to have more levels designed by Nintendo than any Mario game in the past.
That's true. I mean, it already
100.
has. Well, that's not launching with 100. It's launching with 60.
Isn't it?
No, that was a
Oh.
mistake printed on one of the websites. And the 60 levels are.
Well-
it's not like a campaign. Those are levels that get randomly selected as part of like the. You have 8 lives to beat. 10 levels or 8 lives to beat.
They had such a good thing going, and then you had to disappoint me with
Yeah,
that.
no,
news.
were you kidding me?
That's
I don't know. You got to
disappointing.
look it up. So, the game comes out today. There's already tons of people that have done.
Yeah, I've already played all those modes. I should know about that. But incidentally, this would be a good time to mention the fact that, Nick, you are going to have a 5 hours in on Super Mario Maker.
Yes, I will very soon.
We don't know when yet, but it should be coming probably within the next 2 weeks. Is that too much to say?
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay, yeah. And then also as a feature, Nick is going to be playing Mario Maker levels that the ZBN makes for him.
Yeah, we're going to start out that way.
Is that also right?
And then it might turn into just generally playing and reviewing levels. So yeah, that'll be fun.
It's going to be an interesting series. We haven't really workshopped it that much, but it's going to be out there. So if you like watching Super Mario Maker levels and people who are generally good at Mario games struggle at Mario games, then I think you're going to like this. Also, I should mention 8-Bit Mario videos. I don't know, that's just what it says. So go watch 8-Bit, I guess. Man, what a show, guys. Super Mario
franchise,
Maker's out
10
today.
out of 10 overall.
Let's go play it. Yeah, can we go ahead and rate the Mario franchise as a whole? Or were you serious with the 10 out of 10?
I mean, when I'm rating the franchise as a whole and the fact that it's managed to maintain a lot of strong direction over the years, yeah, I don't think you can have perfection. But 10 out of 10 has to serve some purpose, and I think that they deserve it more than any other series.
They definitely do. While there are some series where I'm super excited for the new title but wasn't so warm on past titles, or they're a series where I used to love and they've sort of fallen off my radar. This is one of those where I continue to look at it and I know if I'm going to invest in it, I'm going to have fun with it.
Yeah, every time a Mario game comes out, you know that there's going to be there's going to be something there that's worth revisiting. And even in New Super Mario Bros. 2, which I complained about a lot, the coin rush mode is really cool. Not going to lie about that. But anyway, I think that about wraps us up. We've gone about a little over an hour here, so good show, everybody. My name is Spigel. You can follow me on Twitter at SpiegelWee. These guys don't have Twitters, I don't think, but
I'm just Nick, normal Nick.
They haven't joined. Yeah, they haven't joined the 21st century yet, or something. But if you like our show, don't forget to share it with your friends, and don't forget to tell your friends about our Super Mario Maker levels that we're going to be showing off here on the channel, because it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fun, trust me.
Is it going to be fun?
Yes.
Okay.
It's going to be fun.
As fun as Mario.
Yes, because it is Mario. The end. for Nick and Piddle, it's Spigel. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks for listening.